start with you, Comrade Ibrahim Momo. Thank you so much for being part of the show thus far. What do you make of this particular banter? I'll call it banter because it's happening between APC and ADC. The House, the Senate approved 1.15 trillion naira for the president for us to measure up the deficit with the 2025 budget. And we know that from the report we gathered from APC administration, by August this year, we have been able to get or surpass our even non-oil revenue target with 20.59 trillion naira generated already. What do you have to say about this borrowing? And you know, the fact that it's already out there. The likes of the Speaker of the House some time ago was taken aback about the borrowing of Nigeria, saying that if we don't curb this borrowing, it's going to send us to a place that will not really be found. And also the fact that if we're to borrow this money, we have 193 trillion naira to be the money, the debt we're owing now at this point. What do you make of this, please? Let's get your opinion on this.
Well, thank you very much. My first take is to, roundly criticize or condemn the penchant of this administration, the borrowing spree, the debt peonage that they are turning that, taking Nigeria into. I find it very disturbing that at the time when all manners of subsidies have been removed, in order to save funds, at a time when this same government has told us that their revenue targets were not only met but surpassed before, just around the middle of the year, around August 2025, at a time when the government is earning, if I speak in terms of earnings, what the Federal Account Allocation Committee shares monthly now is almost 200% or more than what it was just 3 years ago. At a time when the economy is supposedly doing so well, it is a time when we are going beyond the borrowing plan, agreed or approved borrowing plan by the same National Assembly, and borrowing excessively. In a year where we have not had subsidies, this government, what that report said was, if this government had its way with this 1.15 trillion borrowing, we would have borrowed 40 trillion. That's almost the size of the annual budget of 2025. This year is about 57 trillion. And if this particular one is approved, it will take it to over 40 trillion. Almost the equivalent of the entire budget at the borrow. At a time when you have met your revenue targets, even before the end of the year. I find it disturbing. I find it incomprehensible that, the government is only understanding of macroeconomics is debt peonage.
When you say you find it disturbing, Comrade Ibrahim, before now the budget was supposed to be 54 trillion naira, and then after the FIRS and also the custom, when they push in their revenue the money they generated, they pushed the budget now to 59 point something trillion naira, hoping on the oil benchmark sale to be at 75. And also we're told by the Minister of Economy that a certain 13 trillion naira will be borrowed for the budget to be supported. So they told us already before this particular turn of borrowing and all that started coming up. Should we be surprised now? And if we're not supposed to be surprised, they also say that the reason for the borrowing is to make sure that every Nigerian benefits from this present administration's policy. And also the president said something, that his major aim is to make sure that no Nigerian will go home or go back to bed empty or hungry. Isn't this more like a good one? Isn't it moving like in a good trajectory for Nigerians now?
Now, there are issues with the current borrowing spree. Issue number one is that the revenue borrowing is supposedly meant to augment revenue shortfalls. Now, this government has told us that it has surpassed not just met, because it met it in August, surpassed its revenue target for the year. It means that the idea of borrowing to augment revenue shortfall ordinarily should not have arisen. That's one. Issue number two is the fact that when it comes to this borrowing, it is outstripping the borrowing plan. The borrowing plan was around 17 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. Now we are borrowing, if this is approved now, about 40 trillion. It's incongruent. The fact that at the same time when you are earning more than your revenue target, you are borrowing much more than your borrowing plan. It's incongruent. So, and the idea that the borrowing is for the good of Nigerians, is for to ensure that no Nigerian goes hungry, it begs the question with all due respect.
All right.
Why I say that is because, one, this borrowing it's not a grant, it's not a gift you are going to pay back sometime in the future. What if there are revenues? Now you are exceeding your revenue targets. What if because of COVID, another COVID, or because of one global pandemic, or because of one global economic meltdown, there is revenue shortfall? What happens? Have you not outmuscled the power or the opportunity to borrow?
Interesting question you just asked. I believe the government will answer that. I believe the government watching at this point will answer that. Let's bring this conversation to the studio. Barrister Ezeluche, what do you make of this and the fact that most of the APC governments have not really been keeping to what the Fiscal Responsibility Act stated? You know, the reason for borrowing, the budgets, and how they're supposed to tell Nigerians what happened and how we use these monies. You know, they've not really been giving us those information. What does this portend? You know, the democracy that we practice and every other thing playing out within the government system now.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, let us not deceive ourselves. We're Nigerians, we know our country. We can't be saying the democracy we practice, because we don't practice the democracy in this country. Those who are...
What do you practice if you don't practice democracy?
Kakistocracy. We have the very worst of us who are leading, who are ruling us. And they were not, most of them were not elected to office. I mean, they rigged their ways to polls. So let us have that basic and then address the issue, because it's only when you tell the truth to yourself that you're able to now confront the realities on ground. Now, let us bring down this whole economic garbage being churned out to basics. The government is supposed to be the parent of the family. Now, we know that the Nigerians are anguished, they are famished, they are pauperized, their income level of spending has reduced. So this whole stuff that Mr. Bola Tinubu is saying, that they are borrowing for the good of Nigerians, we know it's a lie, a flat-out lie that does not even require much investigation. Because ask yourself, as a Nigerian, those who are watching us on TV, you know how you're president, you know how much better off you are. So it's not a matter of economic jingles or stuff. The reality is, how are you impacted by what all these borrowings? And the unfortunate side of it is this. These characters will keep on borrowing. And I'm sure there will be another borrowing plan brought before the National Assembly, which the rubber stamp National Assembly headed by Akpabio will approve. Because their own is just to sit down and approve. They don't even know the details of these borrowings. And for instance, this issue of the U.S. classification of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, you need to also pay foreign lobbyists in the U.S. who will charge about 20 million or more. And that is not factored in, so you have to go and borrow. So the bulk of this borrowing is not for Nigerians' interest. But it's for their personal goods.
Okay, but yes. Why you say that these are more like economic lies, you know?
Yes.
But we have data and statistics to support all of these, the ones that the government, you know, has pushed out. They say inflation is dropping, isn't it dropping? From 34, yes, like 40-something 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now we are, I mean, within the neighborhood of 24, 26.
The same wonderful group, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, told us that employment has gone down to 3%.
Okay.
And, yes, 3%.
And look at the exchange rate.
You know that in your own street, virtually all the youths are unemployed. In my own street, the same thing. And somebody is telling us 3%. In fact, Nigerians are very mild and very calm with these characters because they lie shamelessly. I mean, in reasonable countries, if you say 30, 40, okay, but you say 3%, that means we are even above, economically, we are above full employment. They deserve to be flogged because of the kind of lies they churn out.
So how about the exchange rate stability? It's been hovering between 1,004 something to
yes.
1,005.
Look, this exchange rate stability, if somebody brings in $5-10 million into the market today, the value of the dollar will crash. Then what happens the next? Is it sustainable? And what is sustaining it? Is there an increase in production? Well, that's what we have to ask ourselves. What magic has happened? Has somebody just decided to bring in $2-3 million for elections? And like if you noticed, previously when the PDP was ruling, when there is election period, the value of the dollar crashes because there's so much dollar flows. I watch in the market. But soon thereafter, what happens? As long as there's no production, as long as there's no sustainability of that issue, it's just a fluke. And like all flukes, once the reality dawns, it will evaporate.
But Barrister Adams, I saw you giggling. Are you giggling? Do you disagree with Barrister or do you disagree with me?
I don't.
What's your position?
I want to reaffirm what he has said.
Okay.
You see, the only thing I've just add is that when I was growing up, my mother used to tell us, say, you know, he who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing.
That's right.
Then in the door where I grew up also as kids, say, borrow make me shine. You understand the point? Now, borrow make me shine. I'm sorry I have to use the word. You know, just to get some, you know, relevant comic value. You understand the point? And so that tells you that borrowing is not a good thing. You understand the point? And taking money from people to do whatever the case may be. Now, when I grew up, I found out that they say, yes, you can borrow money or take loan to develop, to create, to produce, etc. Maybe you don't have. And you have a opportunity to take money from your uncle, from a bank, etc. for generation, for production purposes.
Yes.
You do that. There's something wrong with that. If you borrow and pay, and you move forward and you increase your whatever. But the problem we have is that they borrow and steal it. Now, how do you explain that a country that is having 193 trillion is now having in the convoy of the president, vice president, National Assembly? You understand? Their convoy alone is going to about 50 to 60 trillion naira value. That is the convoy. A country is only 193 trillion. In fact, there is no man living on earth today that is a trillionaire. The richest man on earth is a billionaire, not a trillionaire. How many nations do you have that will tell that they even have trillion economies? They're not to 10.
A trillionaire in dollars.
You understand? In dollars, that's what I'm saying. It's trillionaire in dollars, whatever you call it. It's not naira. You understand the point? And that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's only in Nigeria you see that the man, our economy is going into trillions, we are in debt.
Naira.
Whether it's naira, currency, our currency.
Because of the value of
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. See, that should scare them. Because it should go to zillion. When you now say it's about 2 zillion that Nigeria is owing, or 200 zillion, is that what people want? Somebody went to UK. Was it Margaret Thatcher? I don't know when Obasanjo was. I think Obasanjo or something like when. The Prime Minister UK, told him categorically, why are you coming here to come and plead for the debt, whatever the case may be? Whereas 1 or 2 persons in your cabinet can offset this whole whatever that we're having. So stealing to consume, borrowing to consume is the problem we're having in Nigeria today. We got these trillions.
Talking about borrowing to consume, let me bring you back to, I like to talk about your friend, a man that you admire a lot.
I don't want you to go into that. Anyway, you can go into that. Let us not.
Yes, that's talking about Minister Nyesom Wike. Okay. He was asked how is it that he drives a Rolls Royce, and he said, so what? So what? Now, what do you think will be, or what do you think has been the feel and perception of Nigerians saying that someone who is in government at that level will react to the ownership of a Rolls Royce, such a luxurious vehicle, as so what, in an economy where Nigerians are struggling to feed?
Normalization of corruption and opulence. A president who is almost a billionaire today came in 1999 and said that he has only 30,000 naira in his Union Bank account. What am I going to Aso Rock to go and collect? What luggage did I leave there? But today, as we speak, we know where he is in terms of balance. One came and said, I didn't have shoes to go to wherever, but today we know he has a boutique full of shoes, as case may be. If you look at what is happening, anybody can get up in government today and say, I am a billionaire. Just look at all these people in government, the so-called politicians today. Ask any of them, what do they do for a living? Assuming you take up politics and politicians from the world, and let's go back to our normal whatever, how many of them can even produce 1 million naira? I have witnessed where a man who had nothing to eat, a man who could not pay his house rent, suddenly in about 3, 4, 5 years, something that happened, he now became a commissioner in one of the states. Within what they say, twinkle of an eye, twinkle, twinkle, little star, he became a millionaire, acquiring properties here and there. The rest of us who were following him and were able giving him to spend, they now say we are not progressing. They called us, loafers, because we are not smart. That is the reason why we could not. Within 6 months,
because you didn't join the
You understand the point?
But you know what that
So
means?
it's normalization. It's wrong. So this is the reason why they can get up and say, "I own a Rolls Royce," is because of what you can't even question it.
I think we just question it goes to the root of the essence or the meaning of having the EFCC.
You understand?
I mean, the reality is this.
It's so sad.
I have always advocated that group should be scrapped.
Me too.
Because
I'm of the opinion.
if the EFCC is doing its job, somebody like Wike will not say, so what, to having a car that worth hundreds of millions of naira. What have you done? What has your salary been apart from your income from the as a government employee? So it goes. I mean, the society is decayed. If the FCC was functional, recently they just charged Sylvia for taking $14 million. In a country where you have a regulatory agency that should be tracking funds movement, what they do is to pursue young boys who are pressing their phones.
People go to the offices
And they say they are working. Meanwhile, I mean, that is why I say EFCC should be scrapped, because they're just a bunch of characters who are making money out of the system.
Well, unfortunately, I would have loved us to, drag this a little bit more, but we are out of time for this conversation, and we have little time for the very next conversation. Comrade Ibrahim Momo, I would like to start with you on this next conversation. Well, let's take a break. And then we'll come back. We'll be looking at the PDP. The PDP's convention is to hold, and this is regardless of court orders. Thank God we have barristers in the building. We'll take one, maybe a few takes each, and then we'll wrap this up. Join us again after this break. All right, now let's dive into this. In a twist, in a dramatic twist ahead of the PDP's convention, and Oyo State High Court in Ibadan has extended its interim order allowing the convention to hold in the state, and this is regardless of another court order from Abuja asking that the convention not hold. And then we've also seen a situation where the parties, we've had chairman, suspended. Well, gentlemen, there's no point going into the story of the PDP. We are all well aware of what's been going on in the PDP. I would like to start off with the lecturer. I wonder what you will be teaching your students now when we see what's going on in PDP. Comrade Ibrahim Momo, what do you think will happen if this convention holds, like Olugwagba and the rest of them are insisting on, going ahead with the convention? What do you think will happen?
Well, what do I think will happen? I think first and foremost that eventually a court of appeal or even a Supreme Court would nullify that convention. because there is a court order stopping it.
And there's another court order asking that it goes ahead.
I'm going to that point. Yeah, the challenge with our courts, particularly the high court in Nigeria, is that these courts are seen, this for the first time, you see coordinate court of coordinate jurisdiction, court of equal standing, high courts, for example, sitting over the same issue and passing conflicting judgments. You know, I think the judgments are now for sale or are now for hire. Come to me, I'll give you a favorable judgment. Go to that one also give you a favorable judgment. So that's what the major challenge is the fact that our courts, and I have seen this NJC, you know, in the time past, have, you know, suspended, sacked judges for this similarity, but our judges still do not, particularly the High Court, are not learning their lesson. The other point is about the fate of PDP. For me, that's even the most important issue. The fact that this PDP has kind of, if Abraham Lincoln did say that a house divided against itself cannot stand, he's leaving that premise. PDP is a house divided against itself. Wike at one time, post 2015, was the Messiah. He was the one who was doing everything. In fact, literally, one who held PDP together when everybody abandoned the ship. That same Wike is now its albatross. It's not the one destroying within the party. And we are seeing the effect. It is not. There's no rocket science here.
What does that say? What does that say to the structure of political parties in Nigeria, where individuals basically determine how the parties are run, survival or death, as it were, of parties?
If you will recall on your show, sometime several months ago, when we spoke about similar issues, I hold the view, and good thing you called me a lecturer, but that's what I am. I also taught my students that when we look at what is a political party, in stricter sense, so Nigeria does not have any political parties. Nigeria political parties are primarily they have ideologies. What's the difference between the PDP, the APC, and the Labour Party? What difference? Political parties have membership who pay dues. Those members elect their leaders. It is a bottom-up kind of. In Nigeria, all the parties you have in Nigeria, a few people come together for the party. The PDP was G44, G34. The APC was 30 people. The ADC was taken over by a group of 6 persons. Across political parties, what you are seeing is a top-bottom approach. Where it's going to be a bottom. Which political party do members pay dues in Nigeria? And we have had an action group and say there are parties where parties are parties in the time past. Today, we do not have political parties in Nigeria. All we have are vehicles or special purpose vehicles. So it is not surprising. Go through the Nigerian position. The current Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, governor for 8 years under the PDP. Today, he was minister under the APC and now he's Senate President under APC. You can call even this former governor of Edo, Godwin Obaseki, first elected under APC, and then moved to the current Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, elected under PDP for 2 terms as governor. And then he was elected governor to Martin Filechi. He became governor for 2 terms under PDP, and then eventually he had moved to the APC.
So we don't have political parties in Nigeria.
So we don't have political parties, and that is what we have seen. We have special purpose vehicles. That's what I call them.
Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Well, let me bring you to the studio. I think we'll just take maybe a few minutes because we'll take this conversation later during newspaper review, which is about 10 minutes after the end of this one. Barrister Ezeluche, your thoughts on this one? You could just paper over it, so we'll do more justice later. I think
Wike has done what he was recruited by the Tinubu regime. And it's time to discard him. So very soon he'll be leaving. But the reality is this, which we also have to realize: those who make peaceful change impossible, make violent change inevitable. Never. So if APC thinks that by scuttling the various opposition parties, they've done that to the PDP, they've done that to the Labour, they are also planning to do that on the ADC. When the coast seems very clear to them, that's when they will be hit by reality.
If APC thinks, but the courts are the tool, basically. doing this.
I agree. The courts are doing this, and who do you go to? Is it the current NJC headed by the Chief Justice? If you recollect, it was this same Chief Justice that was on the panel that certified Hope Uzodimma, who came forth in the elections in Imo State as the governor. So there's not much hope in this system.
All right,
the judiciary.
Don't worry, we'll expatiate on this one later. Barrister Asim Adams.
See, the point is it's really, really sad.
And then the court had to tell INEC not to even go monitor.
That is what I'm saying.
And recognize.
It's really very sad for the judiciary. And the CJN is really not doing something about this. Because I remember last year, 2024, during one of the judges' conference they held in Abuja, the issue of these conflicting judgments or, judgments of this nature came up. What the CJN said in that particular conference was that one of the reasons why you see this kind of judgments being conflicting judgment making by cause of coordinate jurisdiction is because judges do not do what they call conferencing. That conferencing or whatever the case may be, that they should be networking and whatever the case may be. That is the only answer she gave to it. And I felt very sad. I said that is not what should be.
You guys should have a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, maybe they should have a WhatsApp group because they said they are not doing conferencing. You understand the point? Then I now replied, I said, well, CJN, I'm disappointed. But I look at it. That even Mohammed Tanko did better than she's doing right now, because Mohammed Tanko, wielded the axe, that heavy axe at that time, based on this political, decisions of this nature, High Court, Federal High Court, etc., cause of coordinate jurisdiction, giving conflicting judgment. He came and suspended, 3 judges, one from River State, one from Cross River State, and another one from Kebbi State.